along those lines, so I spoke with Matt Fitzgerald, and I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a sports writer, typically in endurance sports. I spoke with him a few weeks ago, and he has a book called Diet Cults. Although he's not a registered dietitian, I love that term,
Hmm.
diet cults. I can't remember how you refer to them, fad diets. I think diet cults almost gets to the mentality a little bit more.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
love that. Is there a common thread or a common strategy you have in trying to get people off of that diet yo-yo or the diet cult mentality?
Well, if they are yo-yoing and they end up in my office, clearly what they do is not working for them.
Hmm.
So we find a plan that works.
Right.
And diets don't work. I mean, 80% of fourth grade girls have been on a weight reduction diet.
Hmm.
And we know that kids in middle school, when they move into high school, if they've been on a diet, they end up heavier. And we know that high school kids that have dieted, when they go to college, they end up heavier. And these college kids, I mean, it just perpetuates a really bad cycle of being denied and deprived and then blowing it and cheating
Hmm.
and the guilt and the deprivation. So they're really, diets are really unhealthy, and so my job, or the job of a registered dietitian, is to teach people eat, how to eat appropriately, how to eat healthfully, how to eat enjoyably, how to eat without guilt,
Hmm.
and how to eat in a sustainable fashion that fits their lifestyle and their food budget. Um, Again, economics plays into this a lot. I mean, can a college athlete on a, who's working two jobs to put himself through school, you know, eat, invest in lots of, fruit smoothies with lots of, berries and exotic fruits and vegetables that are
Hmm.
very costly. And plus, take time to prepare. I mean, you have to really look at the whole picture.
Hmm. For anybody who does pick up the book you may do it elsewhere, but I made a note on page 103. You actually do a cost breakdown of like cost per 100 calories for various foods in that section, which I love. I do that sometimes myself. Yeah, here it is. Everybody can see that the chart at the bottom. Um, does that come in to play pretty often with your clients where you're trying to figure out how do we get the best nutrition for like most bang for your buck as far as making sure you are fueled?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was doing some work with some minor league baseball players, and they don't get paid a heck of a lot of money.
Right.
And a lot of, lower level athletes that aren't pros, they're just struggling
Mm-hmm.
to make ends meet until they make it big time. And peanut butter. I mean, peanut butter is one of the best sports foods around. So letting them know that peanut butter is anti-inflammatory, it's got healthy fat in it, that it's inexpensive, it doesn't spoil. You can live on peanut butter and banana sandwiches,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be a positive sports food. So rice and beans, another great sports food. Protein carb combination, and it's inexpensive and it's tasty and it's filling and it fuels the muscles and it builds and repairs the muscles.
Mm-hmm.
So, for certain athletes, budget makes a difference. The majority of my clients are more upper income and they eat whatever they want, be it salmon 3 times a week or
Yeah.
mushrooms or, buying all sorts of expensive protein powders or whatever. So
Yeah.
it just ranges. But it's important to know that all people, regardless of their income, can eat well and have a great sports diet that will enhance their performance.
Yeah, I kind of eschew the thought. I think you often get the idea about um, eating healthy is expensive, like perpetuated. And it's to me, it's like there's definitely I think there are snack foods and things down the middle aisles. I guess I'll back up a little bit. My mother's strategy for going to the grocery store, she says, if you don't want to buy any junk food, stay on the outside. It's
Hmm.
all like all the produce, all the normal whole foods are on the outside.
Hmm.
All the processed stuff is in the aisles in the center of the store. Um, but so some of that stuff is subsidized, but it seems like you can pick up like long grain brown rice. You can pick up stuff like that
Mhm.
that's got plenty of nutrition to it versus let's go buy a bag of chips for
Yeah.
the same price.
But there are different aisles in the grocery store, the
Yeah,
canned
yeah, yeah.
aisle, the whole wheat flour aisle, the canned tuna fish aisle. I mean, even canned fruits
Hmm.
have the similar nutritional value. Fruits and vegetables, even when they're canned, they have nutrient profile that's similar to the fresh. Because if
Okay.
you think about it, fresh from California, I mean, most of the produce that we eat here in New England is grown in California. It takes a week for it to get cross country. You buy it, and then it sits in your refrigerator for 2 or 3 days. That's not um, fresh. It's
Mhm.
unprocessed, but it's not fresh.
Right.
So, frozen vegetables are a great option and they're less expensive and they can be more, a better nutritional bargain than buying the fresh. So again, it's helping people look at the whole picture
Hmm.
and not just the latest tweet or headline.
Yeah. I can't remember whether you addressed this, but I know sometimes people will talk about if you, um, if or when you cook food, it loses nutritional value. Do you know anything about that?
Well, if you have a piece of broccoli that's cooked, like a stalk of broccoli that's cooked,
Hmm.
gives you all the vitamin C that you need for the day. Now, it's lost maybe 30% of its vitamin C through cooking,
Hmm.
but it still gives you all that you need. And most people just don't have one little stalk of broccoli, they eat two or three of them. So
Hmm.
it's kind of irrelevant in many
Okay.
cases. And people complain about, oh, these college vegetables, they're cooked to death. And so they don't bother eating them.
Hmm.
Well, they might have lost some of the nutrients, but they haven't lost all of them. And anything's better than nothing. And if you
Right.
just eat a big pile of it, then it doesn't matter. Just
Yeah.
the quantity of eating a lot of it, you can get more than you need.
Yeah. It's just another one of those like diet cult mentalities. There's just a lot of things rattling around in my brain, and I'm like, well, I have you, Nancy. I need to like try to get all of these things out. Um, I want to back up a little bit. You were talking about fourth grade girls and dieting. Um, where do you have an idea, or where do you think that comes from? That this idea that fourth grade girls even need to be dieting?
Well, we live in a weight obsessed culture,
Hmm.
and um, it's just insidious. And they get it from moms, they get it from media, they get it from magazine ads. I mean, you have to color your hair because it's not good enough. You need to wear makeup because you aren't pretty enough. I mean, even men now are getting bombarded. I saw a thing for coloring for beard.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, oh, you don't want to have a gray beard. I mean, that means you're like, whoa, not good enough. And
yeah.
so there are all these messages that you're not good enough unless you have this perfect body. And it starts at a very early age. And it's really important that we have um, other messages that can counter those. It's
Hmm.
like you were born with a perfect body, and your body still is perfect. I mean, people say, "Oh, I want to look like a runner. My body doesn't look like a runner." Well, what does a runner look like? What does a dog look like? And if you
Hmm.
talk about dogs, what does a dog look like? Well, are you talking about a Saint Bernard, a Greyhound,
Hmm.
Poodle, a Labrador, a Beagle, a Chihuahua? I mean, in the dog kingdom, bodies come in different sizes and shapes.
Hmm.
And that Saint Bernard doesn't want to be a greyhound.
Hmm.
And even if you did make the Saint Bernard into a greyhound, would it be a happy Saint Bernard? No, it'd be miserable.
Right.
It'd just be a mean, miserable Saint Bernard. And so dogs know to be proud of their genetics and their heritage, and they just wag their tails and walk around with their heads very high.
Hmm.
These people, if you're a Saint Bernard and not a greyhound, there's shame, embarrassment, guilt, and it's just a very unhealthy culture.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah,
just insidious. Yeah.
you talk about it a little bit in the book too, talking about body dysmorphia disorder. I think you talk about it kind of being on the rise. Do you think there's like, it seems like there's an increased pressure because of social media and the kind of constant connection that we have now. I'm old enough that I didn't have social media like in elementary school, but I know that elementary, middle schoolers, definitely high schoolers. It's like, say you're bullied at school, you go home, you get away from it, but now there's social media and there's this opportunity for it to continue almost 24/7 unabated. Do you think it's largely because of social media that's on the rise, or are there other factors at play for you?
I think that body image problems were around long before social media.
Hmm.
And it sort of might have started back in the 1950s when Weight Watchers first started.
Hmm.
Like, oh, your body's not good enough. You'd better lose weight. Um, and it's just perpetuated. So TV didn't do much good. and, and now social media certainly isn't helping. But
Yeah.
that said, there are social media sites that are believe in health at every size and loving your body the way that it is. It all depends on who you listen to. And people seem to glom on to the negative stuff.
Hmm.
And, you know, that's what gets integrated into their brains.
Yeah, I think we have a tendency to gravitate towards and hold on to the negative things more than the positive things, which
Mhm.
is why like it's easier to sell sensational negative headlines than it is like selling happy stories.
Yeah.
So, but there is a kind of body positivity movement out there right now, especially for um, I'll say overweight people, because there's been so much of that, idea of you need to lose weight, you're not good enough. How do you balance this? Because I like your philosophy of thinking about like these are my genetics, this is who I am, and trying to optimize me.
Mhm.
How do you balance that idea with also trying to make sure the person is like existing in a healthy body. They're not too overweight or whatever the case may be with them.
Yeah, in my sports nutrition guidebook, I have a very strong section on weight, body image, how to lose weight and have energy to exercise. And it really, I mean, you talk in generalities, but it's a one-on-one conversation.
Hmm.
Um, and so much of it depends on the person's history. It depends on their genetics.
Hmm.
And I have so many people that come to me that want to look like a runner, their vision of a runner, which is a greyhound, and they are St. Bernards. And that's what their genetics is.
Hmm.
And just work a lot with you don't have to like your current body, but you can tolerate it. You can be grateful for it. You
Hmm.
can appreciate it. And you can take care of it. And looking a lot at quality of life and the cost of having a runner's body
Hmm.
is extremely high. For some women, it costs them their menstrual cycle because
Hmm.
under eating and over exercising, and there's not enough fuel to take care of both normal body functions and run, then the body stops menstruating, and that has negative health issues. But it's not just in terms of um, bone health, because amenorrheic female athletes are much more prone to stress fractures, but it's their whole mind. An underfed mind is not a happy mind. Um,
Hmm.
so again, we have to get away from dieting and eat appropriately. And there's interesting research coming out now looking at ultra processed foods. And
Hmm.
there's just a study where they had a group of people in living in a metabolic ward in a hospital where everything was totally controlled. Their exercise was controlled, their food was controlled, and they gave them abundant food of either ultra processed foods or all natural foods. And the
Hmm.
diets were, you know, designed to be as similar as they could be, but
Hmm.
instead of fresh peaches, you know, canned peaches, instead of homemade cookies, commercially made cookies or whatever.
Hmm.
And they find that those over a course of 2 weeks, those that ate the ultra processed food gained 2 pounds, and those that ate the all natural foods lost 2 pounds. And just um, again, we need to get people back to eating more natural foods closer to the earth, um, and being responsible,
Hmm.
setting aside time. I mean, meals these days are optional.
Right.
Yeah, and it used to be way back when people were, you know, strong and hearty, they would have breakfast, big breakfast, and work on the farm and come in for their main meal in the middle of the day and then have a supper at night. And then the war came along and women went to work and the main meal moved to the end of the day. And that's where convenience foods came in.
Hmm.
And then now kids sports comes along and a
Hmm.
practice is in the middle of dinner and the gymnastics goes all the way from 5 in the afternoon till 8 o'clock at night, and family meals have totally eroded, and there's a lot that gets lost with that.
Hmm.
So there are many um, changes in our society and our lifestyle that are not conducive to optimal health or athletic performance.
Hmm.